This video is going to be all about painting. Now, painting, aside from being really boring to watch, it takes quite a while. It took me about 2.5 days to actually paint this box because each layer, each coat of paint has to dry before another coat of paint can be added. It has to dry before I can even turn the box to paint another side on this rectangular cubic form. So I'm not going to show you the entire painting of this box. I'm just going to give you little indications of what transpired. Now here I'm mixing the first paint for the interior of the box. This is a titanium white acrylic paint, water-based acrylic paint, and I'm adding about 50% paint, 50% of the Ponol glue, and mixing. And I will have to add water. And in this particular paint, it gets real sort of foamy. It's sort of odd paint. So I have to end up adding quite a bit of water to get it fluid enough to make it easy to paint with. You don't want to get it too runny, but you don't want it really too thick usually. So it's just really a matter of judgment. And I'm mostly mixing with the end of the brush, not the brush itself, but the handle of the brush. This creates fewer air bubbles in the paint. This is one of the biggest enemies of painting. Two enemies are really air bubbles and debris in the paint. Air bubbles have to be treated very carefully, otherwise you end up with a surface that is very rough, very pebbly. Kind of as those air bubbles dry, the bubble itself maintains itself throughout the drying process. So you end up with these little bumps, and you really don't want that. So I use enough water to make it thin enough so that the bubbles pop as they dry. I'll actually blow on the surface to make sure that those bubbles pop. Here I'm just putting on one coat to begin with to cover everything, and I end up doing 3, 4, sometimes as many as 8 coats of paint on a piece depending on the type of texture I want to achieve. In this box I want a nice creamy thick texture on the paint, and so it's going to take 4 coats. In some areas 6 coats. Around the lip I'll do 6 coats. I'm using a soft bristle brush for all of the painting on this box. That's generally what I use. Sometimes I use a real fine pointy brush for really fine pointy painting, really detailed painting. But in general I'm using a soft bristle brush. My main goal is to get as even and consistent a coat of paint as possible. Now, since this paint has to last me a couple of days, I have to cover the jar. And it needs to be well covered, otherwise it will dry out too much to be usable and I'll end up having to mix more paint. And here I'm mixing the paint for the lid, and it's going to be a sort of a medium blue. And now here's the paint for the body of the box. It's a nice aqua blue, to which I add just a tad more of that medium blue, just to take the greenishness of it down, just a smidgen. So after about 2.5 days of painting, about 2.5 days of construction work, here is the final product, the final result, our little box